If you want dogs to scare you for the rest of your life, read this book. Hey guys, Devin here, back with Starting Point, and today I will be reviewing Cujo by Stephen King. Now this is the second ever Stephen King book I read. I just read Misery. You can check that video out if you want to. This is his sixth novel, I think. It was made in like 1981. And it's a very simple premise. It's about a killer dog and a family that is trapped in a car, and the dog just tries to kill the parents. Now the concept seems simple, but there's other plot lines, there's other stories that go along. Some I like, some that I do not like. So I will be discussing it all right here. Just a warning that this first section is spoiler free. But then, like, probably halfway through the video, I will be talking about spoilers. So stay aware for that if you haven't read the book yet. Just, click off the video at that point. But if you did, then stay for the whole video. The first thing I want to talk about is, when Stephen King made this book, he was high off the drugs. I think it was like cocaine, alcohol, like all that stuff. Like, he was in his prime drug use, and there, obviously there's that story about him like not remembering writing this book, and he he read the ending and he didn't know what was going to happen to his own book that he wrote. So I find that very funny. But this was like made in the prime of his career, I'd say. So he wrote 6 very successful novels at this point, and I think he was a household name. He first started this when he was like in a dealership on his own with some guy who was weird, and he had a big old Saint Bernard with him. So I found that pretty cool. Now this story, like before I read this, this is why I chose the second. The story is very nostalgic for me because I remember being 6 years old or 7 years old, and it was just like on TV. I recorded it and then I watched it, and I remember it just traumatized me. That and Pet Sematary were like the first 2 Stephen King movies that I watched as a kid, and both of those were horrifying. But other than that, I think I've only read 3 books at this time, but I think even then this one is probably towards the middle of it. This one is towards the middle of his discography, I'd say, because there's nothing great propelling it, and it's like a cool concept, and it's probably a little longer than it needed to be. I think it's still worth a read. I read it in 5 days. I thought it was a really good read. I kind of I wasn't as obsessed with it as I was with Misery, but it was still very entertaining nonetheless. The killer dog is actually kind of like a subplot, I'd almost say, in this book, which could be good, could be bad. The main thing I'd say was it dealt a lot with the relationship of the Trentons, and they've been married and they have a 4-year-old son whose name is Tad. And recently, the husband, Vic, his company, which makes like cereal, it's like Red Singers or something. Oh, they had a controversy in their, cereal where it like the red dyed and didn't get processed. So whenever like kids threw up or pooped or something, it just made it seem red, so it looked like blood. So parents got freaked out. Like the cereal company is tanking, and this is Vic's, whole job, because I think he advertises for the company, and he has to go to this big business meeting now for like 5 days with his partner Roger. And I really like Roger. He's just a bro, man. He just likes to chill. He just likes to hang with the homies. And they go on this business trip, and you try to get the company back. But the twist is that there's a little problem with the family. The wife and the husband, aren't getting along. They're in a little rough patch in their marriage. And he leaves this trip, and they're both on bad terms. And also they have the 4-year-old son who has like nightmares every night, and he thinks he sees like a monster in his closet. And the dad has like a little ritual to make the monster go away. I think it's pretty cute. I think the relationship between Tad and his dad and his mom, I think that's what makes the story almost. I think Tad made me want to come back to the story more and more because he's just so adorable. He's just a lovely little 4-year-old who's very naive and stuff. Also, we gotta talk about the Cambers. They live 7 miles out of town, you know, in the middle of nowhere, and their dad is like a mechanic, and he just like fixes stuff, and he has connections, he knows people, and he goes by the name of Joe, and he has a little kid named Brett and a wife named Charity. But, you know, Joe's not the greatest partner in the world, let's say that, and his wife has been wanting out, but, you know, she doesn't have the courage to do so. So then once he finally wins the lottery, they get to leave the town and go on a little vacation, and the dad, you know, stays at home to work on his little shop. But they also have the dog named Cujo, who is like a 200-pound Saint Bernard, just a massive thing, could probably eat you alive. He could eat you alive. And the dog is very friendly. Like, he wouldn't hurt a fly. He would not bark. He doesn't, you know, he's not mean at all. So he's just a perfectly nice, a large Saint Bernard. So then what goes wrong? Well, he gets a bad case of rabies. Throughout the first half of the book, he kind of goes more and more into a downward spiral, and he just gets more and more sick, and he gets more and more irritated, and eventually he turns killer. Now, the portions where it goes to his point of view, I think are some of the saddest parts in the book, because, you know, he's just a dog. Like, he can't help it. Like, he's not the bad one. He is just suffering from a disease. So, you know, while Vic leaves on his business meeting to go work out his situation, and Donna and Vic are still like at odds, you know, there's some tension left, but, you know, she's with her son Tad, so, you know, they go on little trips, they go and try to get their car repaired by Joe Camber, and the car breaks and they get stuck, and then the dog is waiting for them, and it is vicious. This book is about the same length as Misery. It's like 319 pages, and there's not a lot of characters to follow. There's more characters than it needs to be, but like other than that, like, you know, all the characters are distinctable, and it's just a quick read, and there's nothing you need to read like before this book. Now, this book does take place in Castle Rock, so I'm pretty sure that Castle Rock is also in a bunch of other stories, and I haven't read any. No, I haven't read any other stories with Castle Rock in it, but I just know, I've heard that it's like a pretty popular location for Stephen King. Now, this movie had an adaptation like right after the book was made, and, you know, I watched the movie recently, like right after I finished the book, and it's a pretty faithful adaptation besides one major thing at the end. And I thought it was kind of a cop-out, you know, I don't think it hit as hard, but it mainly had every single thing, so it's basically a direct book to movie adaptation, and I think it's a very enjoyable movie. I advise you guys to check it out if you read this book, or even if you don't want to read this book, just watch the movie and you get the main gist of it. But now, let's get into spoilers. If you haven't read the book yet, you know, skip this part, or just have the volume off so I can get more watch time minutes. The first thing I want to talk about is the affair. Donna was cheating on Vic with Steve Kemp, who she met regularly, and once she cut ties with him, then obviously Steve like wrote the message to him and sent it to his office, and then he went to go check his like mail a few days later, and he saw it, and, you know, he confronted Donna about it. And I have to be honest, I don't really like Donna in this book. Like, Vic seems like a really cool dude, and then Donna was just kind of like, you know, comparing them at one point. Like, she was like comparing their height. She was like, "Ooh, Steve is 6'5", you know, Vic is 5'11". Also, when Vic confronts her about it, she doesn't seem remorseful at all. She kind of like puts the blame on Vic. Well, you know, I didn't want to move to Maine. You know, I'm just in the house all day watching Tad, and pity me. This is kind of your fault too. But like she never really truly apologized, I think. And obviously she left that big hole in the relationship, and it didn't feel like she made up for it at all. It looked like she was kind of just like ready for divorce. She like almost like didn't care. And then there was a really offhanded like quote where Vic was like, "Well, at least he's the only one, right?" And then she didn't answer him, and then she just went off into her room. Like, what's the deal with that? So she might have cheated on him with like Five Guys. So I didn't really like Donna in the first half of the book, and I thought I was rooting for Vic throughout the whole time. Oh my gosh, my cat is being annoying. Okay. And also she like kept making jokes about cheating on him, like cheating's all I'm good for apparently, like just like weird stuff. Like I did not like Donna in this relationship. It felt like she was just giving up, and like Vic was actually like a cool dude. He had nothing like wrong with him. He was a nice dad. And she always got jealous of him too for Tad liking him more. And there was just a lot of things that were problematic with Donna. He's my cat. But also, let's talk about the Cambers too. I did not really care about their storyline. Obviously, Joe was hitting Charity, his wife, and his wife was too nervous to say something about it. So then when she won the lottery, she wanted to get her 10-year-old son. And then the whole part of that book I didn't really care for. It's basically just the kid, you know, being like his dad, and the mother being angry that his kid is like his dad. And then he was very concerned about Cujo the whole time because he saw him right before he left and he did not look good. And also Joe just seemed kind of like a one-sided character. Just his only asset was being mean and hitting his wife, which, you know, wasn't very compelling for me. It was pretty satisfying when Cujo ate him though. I wasn't too upset, but it feels like the only purpose served for the Cambers was that they had Cujo, and then once Cujo got bit by the bat, then King basically spent like 100 pages of the story talking about how the dog got bit and how it ate the dad, and the kid and the wife were gone from the house to do anything. So it's basically just saying the house is empty. So we spent a major chunk of the book just explaining why the Cambers aren't at their house, which I didn't really like that part of the book. Now also another gripe is that once they were actually stuck in the car, I thought there could have been more done in the car, because it kind of talked a little bit about them being thirsty and hungry and them struggling, but I kind of wanted to see, you know, I just wanted to see more of them in the car, because they didn't get into the car. They didn't get stuck inside their car until about halfway in the book. Then it kind of just kept cutting back to the other plot lines. It never actually told that much in the actual car. Like I kind of want to see Donna and Tad, you know, struggling. I want to see what they kind of did to pass time, because they're in there for a long time. I kind of want to see more about how the food situation was, how, you know, how hot it was. I thought they underestimated how hot it was in the car, because there's been times where I've been in like an unstarted car in the summer when it's like 90 degrees and it is terrible for 2 minutes. Now, let alone hours and hours and hours. I thought, you know, they could have talked about that a little more. But besides that, when they were in the car, I thought it was super intense the whole time. I thought the dog scenes were great. I really liked how scared Donna was and how she kept fighting this dilemma of like, do I go in and like call this person, or do I just sit here and be safe? Especially that scene like where she does hop out and the dog, you know, chases after her and like bites her and scratches her and like leaves gashes. I thought Tad was really cute, and you know, it was really weird to see his suffering, and it hurt to read about, you know, this little 4-year-old just suffering in the back seat, like swallowing his own tongue, going into convulsions, I think, basically dying a slow, painful death. And he's not eating, and they have no way of help. Also, Vic and Roger's storyline, I didn't really care for either. I liked the break in the action, but I didn't like a lot of like the actual storyline of what they were doing. I didn't really care for the work. You know, I understood it. The only worthwhile point was when Vic actually got the call saying like, hey, your family's missing. Also, Steve Kemp went psycho and destroyed the whole house, and you know, I thought it was entertaining, but nothing really happened out of that. Also, I think the character arcs weren't fully completed in the story. You know, they had this affair issue, and then he left for work, and then, you know, obviously the dog thing happened, and then things kind of just went unresolved almost. Like, I kind of wanted to know what happened. It felt like the book kind of just ended after that. Like, they didn't talk things through, and they're just better now. I think they needed to actually like reconcile, I don't know what the word is, but like I just think they needed to, like learn to love each other again, because I think Donna still did a lot of things that, were terrible, and I think that should end all relationships almost. And Vic just kind of forgave her because a dog almost killed her. Okay, so I'm editing the video right now and do this whole Donna and Vic situation. In retrospective, I think that the best thing they could have done was move forward, because they just had a horrific thing happen to them. So I kind of understand in that perspective, but there's still a lot to be desired, because 2-3 years down the line, when you finally have let go of a kid, I don't know if you'd ever be able to let go of the loss of a son, but once it like hurts less, do they still keep going? Something like that. So I don't know. I guess also they don't have to be the perfect couple. So, maybe I'm just overthinking it. Now let's talk about the ending, where the cop was sent to search. The cop came to find them because they were missing, and there was a whole dragged out plot point of like them just being naive that they can't be at the campers, and it's just like, because we already know they are, and it's just like, guys, just look, dude, please. But then one cop finally gets sent up there, and then he sees the dog, and the dog was too quick, and the dog ate him and killed him in front of Tad and Donna. And then eventually Donna got up the courage to go and kill this dog. She got a baseball bat and basically broke it over this dog and, stabbed him in the eye. Donna basically clutched a 1v1 versus a killer dog. I thought she had a little bit of plot armor in this story, because realistically, even like when she closed the door on the dog and like cracked its ribs, I think that dog should definitely have, eaten her or done something in that aspect. But, I'm not going to complain too much. After Donna kills the dog, then you realize that Tad was dead all along, and he's been dead for a little bit. And once Vic got there, he was like, how long has Tad been dead? And she's like, what? No, he's not dead. Like, she pushed him, she got mad. And it shocked me when I was reading it, because I watched the movie obviously when I was 6, and Tad lived in the movie. It felt like there was no consequence, because everyone lived. The dog barely even killed any main characters. Like, what's the point of that? But in the book, I was like reading it, and I was like, oh, when does he come back alive? Because the movie has him alive, so when does he come back alive? But then he never came back alive. So I personally like the book ending a lot better, just because it had more consequence. But to imagine a little 4-year-old dying of starvation or heat exhaustion, it's just very terrifying to hear from a 4-year-old, and that'd be like a parent's worst nightmare, I think. But yeah, the book kind of just ends with the kid dying and the parents getting back together, and then the book ends. I had a fair share of gripes with the story, but actually overall I thought it was a very good story. I really liked it, and I'd recommend it to a lot of people. It was a quick read, and it was pretty fun. Now this definitely won't be the best book I read. Now if I were to rank like the first 2 books, I'd obviously rank Misery above Cujo. But I think this book is pretty underrated. Definitely check it out if you haven't. I think there were some major problems though that did hold the story back, being like the filler and some uncompelling characters and plot lines for such a short book. Let me know what you think about this book. We're on the road to 1 subscriber, so looking for anyone. I'm offering, I'll pay. That is the video. That is Cujo, and my next review will be The Shining, which I just finished. Look forward to that next week. And that being said, this video is ending, so I will see you guys. Bye.